Are you fascinated by unsolved mysteries that hit close to home? Sins of the South, 3 Oklahoma cold cases by victim advocate Raven Rollins, dives into a trio of haunting crimes from around the state. From a deadly New Year's Eve for Shauna Jones in Henrietta, to Daniel Furr in Ada, whose family still questions if they truly found his body, and Sheila Davini, whose Maysville house fire was initially ruled accidental but later amended to homicide. Sins of the South is available now in paperback, ebook, and through your favorite library app. Find a retailer at ravenrollins.com. Then check out Sins of the South, 3 Oklahoma cold cases. Can you help solve a mystery?
Today on the show, we're diving into one of the most haunting and tragic serial murder cases in Southern history, set in the heart of Texas during a time when fear spread faster than justice. My guest is none other than Kathryn Casey, New York Times bestselling author, veteran crime reporter, and the voice behind some of the most compelling true crime books out there. If you've ever read Shattered Deadly Little Secrets or A Warrant to Kill, then you already know Kathryn doesn't just tell stories. She rebuilds lives and loss layer by layer with empathy and grit. In this episode, we're talking about her book Deliver Us, a chilling deep dive into the still unsolved serial killings of women in the small towns surrounding the Houston Ship Channel or along I-45, which runs from Houston to Galveston. Between 1971 and 2006, over 30 young women and girls vanished or were found murdered in a region now nicknamed the Texas Killing Fields. But Deliver Us doesn't just examine the horror. It gives voice to the victims, their families, and the communities left scarred in silence.
From chilling novels and psychological thrillers to horror short stories, film and screenplays, to true crime, podcasts, music, and the art of storytelling itself, Dreadfully Yours invites listeners into conversations with the minds behind the stories that stay with us. Hosted by author, audiobook narrator, and podcaster Raven Rollins, each chapter blends cinematic narration with intimate discussions exploring creativity, suspense, and the human experiences woven into dark storytelling. Welcome to the show, where stories linger long after the last page. This is Dreadfully Yours.
What did you do before you began writing?
Well, I started writing back in the 80s, and I was I was a magazine writer. I had gotten a journalism degree, and I started working for first local Houston area magazines and then national magazines. And it turned out I had kind of a knack for covering true crime cases. So the first one I covered was back in 1984 in the Big Thicket in Texas. And it was kind of addictive. I really enjoyed interviewing people and getting out there in the field, and it just kind of snowballed over the years. So I've been doing it ever since.
What and when was your first book? Was it true crime or was it crime fiction?
It was true crime. I wrote true crime alone from 1995, I think my first book came out. It was originally called The Rapist's Wife. It started out, I had interviewed Linda Bergstrom for a magazine piece, and then it was such an incredible story that I turned it into a book. It was called The Rapist's Wife in the beginning. It's now called Evil Beside Her.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Good book.
Yeah. Very good book. How many do you even know? Have you even kept count of how many books you have now?
Well, my 19th book is coming out 2 weeks. 11 of them are, 11 of them are true crime. 7 of them are mysteries. And the new book is historical fiction, which I've taken a real segue this time. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I started out just doing the true crime, and then about 15 years ago, I started writing the mysteries and the true crime. I think, when I had learned so much. I mean, when you do what you're doing, or you do what I did, and you're covering true cases, you just learn so much about law enforcement and criminal justice and everything it was like I was in school all of those years. I mean, I've been in, I don't even know how many courtrooms I've been in, how many attorneys I've interviewed, prosecutors. So I kind of just took all of that and turned it into the fiction, which I've really been enjoying. I still enjoy true crime. I'm hoping to write another true crime book next. But it's really fun doing both.
So I noticed that now you live in Texas. So that seems to be the true you write about the most is Texas stuff. Have you considered writing any true crime outside of Texas?
Well, Texas is my home. And the other thing is, we're such a big state, and there's always something incredible going on here. I mean, I haven't had to leave the state, It's like every time I've looked around for a true crime book, there's been some case that stands out here. I have at times entertained the idea of doing cases in other parts of the country. And one I'm looking at now that I really can't talk about right now is outside of Texas. So I might actually break free and leave the state for the first time.
Well, that will be really interesting for you.
Yeah. Well, I travel within Texas. I mean, I'm in Austin. I've had 2 or 3 Austin cases. I've had a couple up in Dallas. I've moved around the states. And when I've done cases like the Piper Roundtree case, part of it unfolded in Houston, but a big portion of it was in Richmond, Virginia. So I was in Virginia for a long time. When I did the Bergstrom case, I was on a nuclear sub in Washington State. So true crime takes you all over the place. Well, you're doing what I'm doing. You're following the leads, and people have moved around, and there are sources in other states, and sometimes you just have to go see where it happened. I mean, if I'm going to describe to a reader what it was like where somebody grew up, I want to see that town. I want to talk to those people.
Yeah, that is something that we preach as well. Like, we really think that it gives you a brand new perspective.
Like you, those cases have been haunting me for a really long time. I would drive down 45 and see the billboards with the girls' faces, and the articles would pop up in the newspaper. And here I was a crime writer, and this was happening in my backyard. And over the years, I just started to think about them like they were my girls. And I needed to see if I could push these cases at all to get them opened up again. It's in a lot of ways, it's a really personal book for me. When I started it, I thought that there had been theories over the years that all of these, there's about 28 cases altogether in the book, and that all of them were related, and there was like one serial killer who had turned the Galveston, South Houston area into his hunting ground. After I got in it, I realized that wasn't the case, that there were actual suspects, and that these cases were actually divided up by decade. So when I sat down to write the book, I divided the book up into 3 different decades, the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. And then I worked the cases within each of the decades. So that kind of helped to not have that overlap. When you see the chart of the girls, that heartbreaking chart, when you see the chart, it looks like it's just this mass of cases. But when you break it down based on what the evidence was, what happened during the time period, how the girls were related to one another, then it was a little bit easier for me to manage when I was writing the book. Plus, remember, I started out as a magazine writer, and this is a very different book than my other books. The other books are all on one case. This was kind of like writing, I don't remember how many chapters are in the book, but like 30 magazine articles to pull it together. It really, you can look at my hair, which is now turned white. And this is one of the cases that I've always had that I knew I had to write about, while I was still able to do this kind of work. So I'm really proud of the book. I think it did a great job of pulling these cases together. And it actually did spur people to go out. The 90s cases have now been solved. It really did help reignite the cases. It got law enforcement interested again. Like I said, when I started out, I didn't even know that in each of the decades, there were viable suspects who were imprisoned on unrelated cases. I didn't know that. And then I went into the prisons and I interviewed these men. By the time I finished the book, I really felt that I knew who had committed most of these murders. Not all of them, but most of them. And William Lewis Reese, who I interviewed, who denied to me that he had killed the girls in the 90s, he now, he's guilty of murdering, at least of murdering the girls. So he's admitted it. So it was really a satisfying book to have written because I really felt like it was part of what brought all of this together and brought closure to these families. I mean, I didn't solve the cases. The law enforcement people did that. But I reminded them that they were out there, and I laid it out for them so they could see, what the situation was.
Yeah, and Reese was actually from Oklahoma.
Yeah, he was on the case that he's been, the first case he was convicted on. The Tiffany Johnston case was Oklahoma City. I think there are other cases in Oklahoma. There are at least 2 other girls that in Oklahoma, and I believe there's at least 1 other girl here in Texas. And when you look at the fact that he was only out of prison for 1 year, from October 1996 until October 1997, I mean, the chaos and the tragedy that man caused during that 1 year, it's just awful. It's just awful.
Which, by the way, you did a documentary, which is now on Netflix.
And a lot of these bodies were thrown into water or left on or near water. And we have hurricanes in Houston, so a lot of evidence was destroyed. Like the 1970s cases, there were 11 girls who were murdered between 1971 and 1978, all in and around Galveston. None of that evidence, except a little bit from the first case, Brenda Jones, has turned up. And as often as I've pushed down there, all I'm told is that it's gone. But we've had a lot of hurricanes since the 1970s down here, and some of the areas are flooded. That doesn't excuse it. That evidence should have been preserved. Now we have a viable suspect. He's not deceased, but we had Ed Bell as a viable suspect for the 80s to 70s cases. And we have DNA from him, but we have nothing to compare it to because all of the evidence is gone.
I know that this was also mentioned in the documentary, but also back in the 70s, we didn't quite know about DNA. We didn't quite know how to use it, how to collect it, what to do with it. And so, later, I think, was it 2012 when they first started working on the DNA stuff, they went back, and they eventually exhumed a body and all this stuff. But that takes a lot of resources, like a lot of resources. And so it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and have it happen. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand. They think, oh, well, we can do DNA now. Just, get it, just get it and run it. Okay, well, you have to have somebody you're running against. You got to have somebody to extract it. Like this whole industry of people have to come together and somebody's got to pay for it. And a lot of these people don't have the resources to pay for stuff like that, which is really sad. But then if they do, it's like this case, okay, well, now we have evidence that's lost, evidence that is missing and stuff that, like that. I think there was a shirt, I believe, that was
That's one of the most heartbreaking things. In the 80s, the actual Texas killing field is a field off Calder Road in League City, Texas. And there were 4 women's bodies there found between like 1983 and 1991. Tim Miller, who runs EquiSearch, founded EquiSearch. They search for missing people and bodies. His daughter, Laura, was one of the victims. And there was a shirt that was found right near Laura's body, over Laura's body. And there are pictures of it. And in the pictures, you could see what looks like it might be blood. Now, it could be Laura's blood. It could be the killer's blood. The shirt has disappeared. I know they've looked for it over the years. I've been assured that they've done everything they can. But that shirt's never turned up. And there's a suspect in that case. And but there, again, like in the 70s case, there's just nobody to compare the suspect's DNA to. There's no evidence to compare it to. It's just heartbreaking. I mean, these parents have been waiting all this time for justice. And if this evidence had just been preserved, one of the cases that did come together is the Crystal Jean Baker case. And that was a case out of the 90s. And that came together strictly because of the DNA. They had saved that in that little town. They had saved that evidence correctly. They had foreseen the fact that maybe someday they'd be able to do something with it, and they kept it and preserved it, and DNA matched up a guy who was a welder who worked at one of the plants off the shore, and, he ended up being convicted of Crystal's murder. DNA is incredibly, as you know, just incredibly important. It's a great tool these days.
There was a lot of construction transients coming in to work and then leaving, and
people they come in and camp out on the beach. So they're there and then they're gone the next day, or they get on or off of a cruise ship, in Galveston. So you're right. That's part of the problem. This is a beautiful part of the state. It's just great, and it's a wonderful place to vacation. And people kind of let their guard down, too, when they're in places like that where there's water and sun. And in the 70s, a lot of the girls liked being on the beach. They went skiing, they went swimming. They were enjoying things that kids all over the world like to enjoy. And sometimes, unfortunately, it didn't work out well for the girls. But
I think even one of the girls was like a championship skier or something like that. Like she was like really good at it.
yeah, they were younger, and they were going to there was a place where the kids would go, and they would go water skiing and everything. And a lot of the girls went to that one club. There were a lot of connections between the girls. And the main suspect for the 70s is still Ed Bell, and he was going to the same venues the girls were going to at that time. He was very closely associated with, what was going on at the time. So, like I said, we probably will never know now, unless someday somebody goes into some closet in some evidence room and finds a box that still has the clothing in it.
I also think it's really interesting because 2 of those girls were last seen, and these are the ones that lived closer to each other from the 70s. 2 of them were last seen at a payphone, which I think is really interesting, at the gas station, because that was definitely a thing that I think happened a lot. And I think it's just really interesting that that's kind of a tactic that people seemed to use back then. I kind of wanted to get your opinion, the multiple suspects in this, because we have, like you said, different decades of this stuff happening around the same area. And I was wondering if you thought that the publicity that the first 3-4 bodies got may have spawned that to be a dumping ground, or if you think that that was just maybe happenstance.
I think it just kind of evolved that way. When you look at like Ed Bell, he was sent to he was flashing in front of young girls, and he was sent to the hospital in Galveston at UTMB. I think it just kind of unfolded that way. I don't think there was any consciousness among these men that there were other things happening there and let's go there. I think it was just an easy place to find young women, who were fairly easy to pick up. You're right, there was the payphone thing. Back in the 70s, some of the girls were hitchhiking or took rides. But see, I do believe that Ed Bell is the killer from the 70s, that a lot of the girls would have known him. So they probably felt comfortable getting into his car. The other thing is that I think it's 6 of the girls disappeared in pairs. So you tend to think you're safer when you've got somebody else with you, but he managed to subdue both of them. So, I think it just kind of unfolded that way. It's kind of like up in Canada where they have the Highway of Tears? Yeah, our area has been a little bit like that over the years. I think it's more opportunity. Up in Canada, I think they've surmised that it's truck drivers and people driving down this highway, and it's lonely and dark. Well, in Galveston, back in the day, the towns weren't that big. This was a fairly quiet area. There were a lot of kids around because of the beach. It was just more opportunity. I've been going in and out of the Texas prisons, since the 80s. I did a Rolling Stone article back in the mid-80s where I interviewed, I think, 4 killers who were involved in a case where they killed a couple outside of Houston. So I've been doing it a really long time, and sometimes it is scary. Sometimes I hadn't done cases where there were multiple victims like these serial killer cases in Deliver Us before, and those men were terrifying. It was really hard to talk to them. I've interviewed people on death row, and it hasn't been as frightening as this. This was because the cases were so random, and these men all had so much anger. At one point or another, all of them became furious with me. Yeah, they were just, there was this pent up anger inside of them. And Reese was really furious with me at one. Ed Bell he was insane. I mean, Ed was severely mentally ill. But he was able to tell me what the girls were wearing on the day that he picked them up 40 years earlier, where they were at the time. I mean, I firmly believe that he murdered the girls. He knew way too much about these 40-year-old killings not to have been the killer. But he became absolutely incensed with me off and on during the interviews. I had 2 interviews with him. So, yeah, it can be kind of scary, and you have to kind of try to work with what they're willing to tell you. I mean, when I went in to talk to Reese, the first thing he asked me was if I was going to pay him. And I said, no, I'm not going to pay you anything. I don't pay for interviews. And I didn't say this, but I sure wasn't going to give him any money. And so he said, well, then I'm not going to talk with you. Well, one of the things I've learned over the years is there's not much going on in prison. And I've had a lot of people tell me I'm not going to talk with you. And if I just don't get up out of the chair and I just stay there and start a little bit of small talk, well, I'm a distraction for a little while. I'm kind of entertainment, So Reese ended up spending an hour and a half with me. So yeah, it really depends on the interview. But the one thing about these serial killers, I noticed the one kind of unifying trait was this anger that they expressed I think it was an anger because I was a woman. These men have a very harsh view of women, and I think part of it was, I think if I had been a man sitting across from them, they would have acted differently with me.
But what are some of the other differences that maybe you've picked up on when you're just working for one book versus something like this with a lot of parts and working stuff going on with it?
With crime, there's just really always a lot of research that goes into it. But these cases, because they were separate but connected, just meant that there were just so many people to talk to. I mean, I had multiple victims' families. I had a lot of victims' families who were so wonderful with me. I mean, these cases, some of them were 40 years old, and it's like tearing off the bandage and opening the wound up again to go in and talk to them. But they were so giving and so wonderful, and some were so appreciative of the fact that I wanted to see what I could do to figure out what had happened, to shed some light. So there's just so much more research when you do a book like Deliver Us, because you don't want to shortchange any of the stories. I mean, you still want to go in, you still want to talk to the prosecutors if there has been any kind of a trial, the victims' families, that all of the law enforcement people involved. I mean, it was the forensic people. I went to a couple of trials for this book. Usually I have one trial to cover. With this book, I think I went to 3.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, there's just so much more work involved in research. And you have to, when you sit down to write it, you have to boil it all down, because you can't write. I mean, I could have written a 1,000-page book on these cases, and nobody was going to want to read that. And my publisher, HarperCollins, wouldn't have wanted to publish it. So you really have to, I'm sure you had to do that with your book, where you're doing multiple cases. You have to boil it down. You really have to get to the essence of the cases.
What is your different processes when it comes to true crime versus your crime fiction?
Well, it's significantly different. With true crime, I'll spend 7-8 months working on the research, and then I'll spend a month just organizing the research. I have all of this. I have like boxes and boxes full of information and tons of recorded interviews, and I have to get all of that together in one place to be able to sit down and write the book. With fiction, I have an outline when I start, and I've figured out who the characters are, and I know how the book begins, I know how it ends pretty much, and I'll have a couple of plot points in mind when I sit down to write it. And I've done some research, because I've got to make sure I got the forensics right and all of that. But I have nowhere near, a true crime book will take me a year or more to write. This book, Deliver Us, took me, I think, 3 or 4 years. But that's unusual. Usually it's a year to a year and a half to pull it together and write it. The crime fiction, the mysteries, I can usually write in about 6 months or less, maybe 3-4 months. So it's a really different process. The other thing is that I'm pulling stuff out of my imagination. So my 4th, Sarah Armstrong, The Buried, there's a lot in there that I fictionalized that I actually had kind of experienced through different cases over the years. So I've been able to use a lot of that, because you have a lot of material. I mean, I'm sure you two both do too. And you know a lot of different personalities and how things kind of worked and came together and everything. And when you write the fiction, you can use all of that. You can manipulate it, make it work with your plot line.
And of course, you have a slew of other books they're literally found anywhere. So you just walk into a bookstore, documentary, go online. Documentary on Netflix is called Crime Scene, the Texas Killing Fields.
Oh, well, I've been doing some TV interviews lately. I did a 2020 not long ago that hasn't aired yet. Some on different cases. There's some things coming up for the fall.
I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of conversations with some of our world's dark storytellers. This story may be over for now.
The next chapter is always waiting to be written.
Until then,
Dreadfully yours, Raven Rollins.